Mark Farrington recently retired after nearly 40 years of teaching writing, the last 25 of them in the MA in Writing and Teaching Writing programs at Johns Hopkins University. He has published short stories in Carve, Craft Literary, the Valparaiso Fiction Review, the Louisville Review, and other journals, and creative nonfiction and articles on writing and the teaching of writing in several National Writing Project publications. His short fiction has won the Editor's Choice Award in the Raymond Carver Fiction Contest, the Dan Rudy Fiction Prize, second prize in the Dame Alice Throckmorton Fiction Prize, 2 honorable mentions for the Momaya Prize, and an individual artist grant from the Virginia Commission on the Arts. A 4-time winner of the Outstanding Faculty Award in the Johns Hopkins MA in Writing program. His other teaching awards include an Outstanding Service Award from the Northern Virginia Writing Project and an Outstanding Alumni Award from George Mason University English Department. Farrington grew up in Great Barrington, Massachusetts, and earned his BA in English and American Literature from Colby College, where he graduated cum laude, Phi Beta Kappa, and completed his MFA in fiction writing from George Mason University. He recently moved to Maine with his wife and their Springer Spaniel after living for more than 30 years just outside Washington, D.C. Loss of Life is his first novel.
This novel has 2 main settings. The first half of the book takes place in Virginia, and then about midway, the main character, Matthew Winton, travels to Massachusetts, to the Berkshires, where he grew up as a child, and he's looking for answers to some of the questions that have plagued him. I'm going to read a portion of the first chapter, and then I'll jump ahead just a little bit and read a couple of paragraphs that are from later in the book. So this is chapter 1 of Loss of Life. A voice summoned me back. "Hello, Mr. Winton. It's time to wake up now." My eyelids wouldn't open. That stuck-together sensation was the only thing I felt, not arms or legs or a body. Glued together eyelids and a painful dryness in my throat. A croaking sound escaped. Water. "There you are. Welcome back." I tried again. Water. "You can't have any." The voice faded, then returned. "Here, you can have a little ice." Something cold and wet touched my tongue. Crystals of bliss, too soon gone. More. Heard as if underwater. My eyes sprang open. I watched a dark brown hand approach, tasted more diamond drops. "Go easy." I struggled to focus. I was sitting in a chair facing a shadow-covered wall. A bright light from somewhere made me squint. Behind me, something beeped. A woman in green walked past, the keeper of precious ice, but I could not make my head move to follow her. "You've been in an accident, Mr. Winton." A different voice, another green woman. "You're doing okay now. The doctors fixed you up." Until that moment, I had been only a pinprick of consciousness. Now, suddenly, I became a body, and instantly jolts of pain attacked. A knife slash in my right knee, stiffness in my neck and shoulders, a squishiness in my abdomen, as if my stomach had been cut open and my guts put on display. More noise, grunts sounding like they were coming from a cave, more electrified pain. A panic raced through me. There, said one of the green women. "Best not to move around." "You just relax, Mr. Winton. We'll take care of you," promised Green Woman 2, although I could see neither of them now, sitting tense and rigid, already understanding that movement equaled pain. They called me Mr. Winton. The name meant nothing to me. I didn't know where I was, what accident had put me there, what I'd been doing before. I didn't know what I'd been doing my whole life. I didn't know as my eyelids closed if they would ever open again. I floated in a world of dreams where unfamiliar people moved past as if I was no more than air they could pass through. At other times, when sharp light pierced my eyes, blue people appeared, touching me, prodding me, pricking me, while people in white stood nearby, speaking in voices like burbling brooks, and sometimes green people wheeled me away down shadowy corridors and into rooms that were always cold. At night, the children came. There were 2 of them. I thought they were children because they were small, with tiny voices. They woke me with stabbing pain in my hand or arm. I felt the heat of a body pressed against my back, but in the darkness it was impossible to make out features. "I'm sorry," she whispered, "I have to change this." I spit when the needle forced its way in. The child apologized again. She seemed too young and tiny to inflict such pain. After she left, I wondered if I had dreamt her. The other child was better at her job. I barely noticed the needle sliding in and out. Sometimes I didn't even awaken and knew she'd come only from the fresh tape holding the needle in a new location, a purple bruise showing where it had been before. In rare, almost lucid moments, I thought perhaps they weren't children. There might have been only one of them, better at finding veins on some nights than others. But I didn't question. I lay quiet and still and did what I was told. There was no moment of sudden awakening. I simply opened my eyes one morning to discover that everything, light, colors, objects, was sharper and more distinct, no longer viewed as if through a rain-spattered window. I saw the hard edges of a counter and a half-open door, a row of straight-back chairs such as you might find in a cafeteria or schoolroom lined up along one wall, a larger armchair in an open space beyond the foot of my bed. Straight ahead I could see a window through which the blue of the sky looked solid as a wall, and even the sunlight appeared to have substance. And I saw a woman putting linen into a cabinet. She was young, in her 20s perhaps, tall and thin, with dark hair cut short. She was dressed in blue top, blue slacks, blue shoes. I thought she looked familiar, although I wasn't sure if I recognized her or just the color of her uniform. Blue is the color nurses wore, while technicians wore green and white coats, doctors. At least that was the conclusion I'd reached, and whether or not it was true, it satisfied me. I lay on my back, eyes open, although when the woman moved about the room, a brace around my neck prevented me from turning my head to follow her. I was always wary of the pain. Several times while sleeping, I'd move in ways that roused the pain that woke me and left me fearful of closing my eyes again. "Hello," she said, sounding excited. "How are you this morning?" I wanted to tell her the world seemed clearer today, but words took effort and threatened to distract me from my main priority, keeping docile all those parts of my body waiting to rebel. I felt surrounded by a pack of hungry wolves. Consequently, I grunted something that came close to okay. "You look better." She drew one of the chairs beside my bed. She had a cheery voice. She had a cheery voice, not overdone or phony, and a bright face. She asked me to rate my pain today on a scale of 1 to 10. I vaguely recalled being asked that before, but I couldn't remember what number I'd chosen. Today I had an easy answer, a good sign, I thought. "Right, now staying perfectly still, it's a 0, I told her. The words coming easier than I'd feared, although no louder than a whisper. When I move, it's maybe an 8. She grinned. Those were probably more words than I'd spoken in total since I'd arrived. "Do you want to sit up?" Dreading trying to push myself up, I started to say no, when I remembered that the bed could do the work for me. "Yes," I said, as she pressed the button that raised my head and shoulders. When she asked if I could sit forward so she could adjust my pillow, I gritted my teeth, squeezed my hands into fists, and leaned forward. Only after she finished did I release the breath I was holding. "You're doing great," she said, and sat down again. "I'm Dana. I'll forgive you if you don't remember." That word "remember" changed my mood. Although I'd mostly been content to give in to the limbo world of drug-assisted sleep, I had moments when I tried to seek clarity. Always I came up empty. I was Mr. Winton. I'd been in an accident. I could remember nothing more. Dana filled in a few blanks. I was in Fairfax Hospital in Fairfax, Virginia. That surprised me. I didn't know where my home was, but Virginia seemed an alien place. I'd been in an automobile accident that had been quite serious, but the doctors were pleased with how I was recovering. I think the doctor may come in to see you later today, she said. I don't remember, I said, meaning the accident, although I could have meant anything. That's okay, she replied. You just concentrate on getting better. She stood. I didn't want her to leave. The accident, I blurted. Did I hurt anyone? She seemed touched by the question. No, she said. You were alone. You ran into a tree. She sighed. You only hurt yourself. I liked Dana. She was friendly but didn't chatter or batter me with questions. Our conversations, such as they were, centered around my creatured comforts. Are you finished eating? Do you need the bathroom? On a scale of 1 to 10, how's your pain? I wanted to ask what she knew about me, but feared revealing how much I couldn't remember. Dana praised how well I was doing, but would her assessment change if she realized my brain had become a black hole? I struggled to remember something, trying to conjure some image of where I lived, people I knew, but searching my past was like walking through a house emptied of everything, the furniture and all signs of anyone having lived there before. The doctor was short and stocky with thick hands and unusual eyes. Good afternoon, Mr. Winton. How are you doing today? I replied better, the stock response that seemed to please Dana each morning when she asked the same question. I am Dr. Shinamoto. Do you remember me? I gave a gesture that might have meant maybe. He drew a chair close and sat. You have had an accident, Mr. Winton. He spoke slowly, distinctly, as if words were lumps of clay he needed to mold before releasing. It was very serious, but you are healing acceptably. He examined those parts of me that had been the epicenters of my pain. A couple times his touch caused a hiss or a grunt to leak out of me, but mostly I remained still and quiet, not wanting to reveal anything that might cause him to change his assessment that I was healing acceptably. Finished with the examination, the doctor again took his seat. He seemed pleased by what he'd found, but I tensed when he asked, do you feel strong enough to answer a few questions? This is it, I thought, and sighed. I'll try. The doctor explained that in addition to the injuries to my body, there had been some trauma to my brain. So he already knew my condition. Of course, I never really believed I could hide from these people what seemed to me a far more serious injury. Sorry, I'll start over. The doctor explained that in addition to the injuries to my body, there had been some trauma to my brain, so he already knew my condition. Of course, I never really believed I could hide from these people what seemed to me a far more serious injury than a torn up knee or a sliced open abdomen. I was a body with a brain that seemed to function well enough with what was immediately in front of me, but would shut off completely when I turned around to look toward my past. I had not only lost my memories, I'd lost all sense of myself. I'd lost my life. Did the doctor know all that? He was still speaking. Although there was trauma, the tests we have conducted suggest there has been no irreversible damage. At this time, we have no reason to doubt that you will recover completely. That was encouraging, although I remained wary as the doctor finally got around to his questions. Do you know where you are, Mr. Winton? The hospital, I replied. Do you remember the accident that brought you here? No, I'm afraid I don't. The doctor smiled reassuringly. That's quite all right. Do you know where the hospital is located? Fairfax, Virginia, I said, my gaze avoiding Dana, standing at the foot of my bed, writing notes on a clipboard. The doctor paused, and I steeled myself for the tougher questions. Some as basic as, where do you live? Where do you work? What is your first name? Instead, the doctor slipped off his glasses and stood. You are doing well, Mr. Winton. Please continue to rest and recover. A bubble of anger popped inside me. That was it for his questions? How much did he really know? What was he not telling me? But I remained silent as he put his chair back with the others and headed for the door. There he turned back. A colleague will be stopping by, perhaps tomorrow. Dr. Clark. He paused as if debating whether to say more. Then he left. What is it like to lose one's memory? I couldn't have described it this way, but perhaps you've been in the middle of a conversation and you reach for a word or name to complete your thought. Only the word has vanished. You grab only air. Sorry, I've lost the word I was thinking of, you might say. Now imagine it's not a word that's vanished, but everything you have learned, all knowledge you've accumulated over the source of your life, everything that assures you that, yes, you have existed, all of that is gone. There is no substance to your life. You are the shell of a crab left behind, the skin a snake has shed. You are a stick figure without weight or substance, nothing to distinguish you from all the other stick figures even a child could draw. And you fight to keep at bay the possibility that you might have to spend the rest of your life this way. I identified Dr. Clark by her white coat. She arrived hugging an overflowing bag and acting as if she was late, although I'd been given no indication of when to expect her. She introduced herself and asked how I was feeling. Better, I said. Give me a moment to get settled, then we'll have a little chat, shall we? She brought a chair close to my bed and set her bag on the floor. She was about my age, with whitish blonde hair and a face that suggested she'd seen a lot that had left her both wise and a little tired. A sweet scent drifted toward me when she leaned close. I ran a hand through my messy, too long hair and over the scratchy beard I developed. So far, I hadn't shaved or even asked to see a mirror, not sure I was ready to confront the stranger who might stare back at me. She pulled the bag into her lap and dug out a notebook and a pen. That's better, she said, settling into the chair, assuming a posture that seemed casual in a businesslike way. Perhaps we can start with a few questions. I nodded, feeling my body tense. Can you tell me your first name, Mr. Winton? Matthew. Do you have a middle name? Arthur. How old are you, Mr. Winton? 41. Your birth date? May 14, 1956. Can you tell me today's date? September. I added an apologetic laugh. I'm not sure what day exactly. The days kind of blend together. And the year? 1997. She paused to write in her pad. I tried not to look smug or self-satisfied. The truth was I'd cheated. Earlier that morning, I'd found my name, age, and birth date on a form Dana inadvertently left by my bed. Adding 41 to 1956 gave me the current year. I felt guilty. I wanted to trust Dr. Clark, but doctors can't put a cast around your brain or give you a pill to help you remember. Dr. Shinomoto had discovered there had been trauma to my brain, but I suspected he had no way of knowing how severely my brain had been affected. I doubted doctors would send home a patient who didn't know where he lived. What they might do instead frightened me into concealing the truth. But Dr. Clark's next question hadn't been answered on that form. Can you tell me where you live, Mr. Winton? It felt like I'd been holding onto ropes attached to flimsy walls that would collapse if I relaxed even a little. I prepared to let those ropes go. Suddenly an address popped into my head. I blurted 10 Division Street, Mansfield, Massachusetts, 01230. The pen in Dr. Clark's hand stopped moving. With her head down, I couldn't see her expression. Her writing was indecipherable, even if I hadn't been looking at it upside down. She resumed writing more energetically, then closed her pen and slipped the pad into her bag. Were the questions over? Had I passed? I wasn't sure about that address I'd given her, but overall, I'd have graded my performance B+. So how are you feeling, she asked, assuming a more relaxed posture. About to say better, I recalled I'd already given that response. Not too bad. There's less pain than before. I must be feeling better because I'm getting tired of lying in bed all the time. We'll get you up and walking about soon. Everyone's treated me well. From what Dr. Shinomoto told me, you're quite lucky. I recalled him telling me that too. No doubt my injuries could have been worse, although I hadn't given much thought to what worse might mean. I imagine you're anxious to get back to work. She paused. What is it that you do? She said it as casually as if we'd been chatting about the weather, but she had me and we both knew it. Bristling, I wanted to accuse her of cheating, even though I was the one who'd been snowballing her, or trying to. The truth is, there are some things I've been having trouble remembering, basic things like where I work, stuff like that. She retrieved her pad. Tell me about those things. I looked toward the two windows on the distant wall. Only sky was visible, thick and lumpy like oatmeal. It's everything, I said, and let those metaphorical ropes go. I don't know who I am. I don't know anything. Those things I got right, I didn't remember them. I read them on a piece of paper. No longer writing, she studied me. I couldn't bring myself to look into her eyes, afraid of what I might see there. Shock, pity, judgment. Moisture dribbling off my chin made me realize I was crying. Dr. Clark handed me a box of tissues. She had to rise to reach them, and before sitting back down, she gave my shoulder a comforting squeeze. When I regained control, she asked if I felt strong enough to continue. I nodded. I'm curious about that address you gave me, Division Street, Mansfield, Massachusetts. I don't know where it came from. It just popped into my head. This hospital is in Virginia. Apparently, you've lived in this state the last 9 years. That shocked me. When I said Massachusetts, it had clearly felt like home. Virginia was the home of Robert E. Lee, the cradle of the Confederacy. Did you remember something? Robert E. Lee. What do you know about Robert E. Lee? I explained that he was the general who led the Confederate Army against the Union. You're familiar with the Civil War? We studied it in school, in 8th grade history. Bruce Catton, we read a book by him. And where did this happen? In Massachusetts, I said, and it hit me. Mansfield, Massachusetts. Where, quite likely, you lived in a house at 10 Division Street. So I did remember something. I had a functioning memory after all. Acknowledging that unlocked a flood of memories, a red house on a hill, a yard surrounded by woods, a dirt path leading to a pond with lily pads, croaking frogs, insect I called darning needles, walking beside a bald, slightly built man, my grandfather. Dr. Clark wrote it all down. Tell me something else you remember. I described a giant rock, Whale Rock we called it, at the top of a hill, the intersection of Division Street and Christian Hill Road, where I got the school bus. The high school where my father worked as janitor and took me to sometimes in the evening so I could play basketball while he cleaned the empty school. The house my family moved to when I was in 5th grade, closer to town. Dr. Clark wrote everything down. I could tell from her energy that this discovery was important. And yet all these memories came from my childhood. She said I'd lived in Virginia for 9 years. I had no recollection of that, or of anything beyond 8th grade. Exhausted, I didn't protest when Dr. Clark suggested we stop. These days I had no reserve. If I got tired, I couldn't push through. I'll come back tomorrow, she promised. Even though it was rude, I let my eyes close before she left the room. And then I want to jump ahead, just read a couple of paragraphs from later in the book. When I lost the memory of my life, I felt robbed of the proof of my existence. Who was a person but the memories they'd accumulated? You remembered this person or that to prove you'd loved and been loved. Places proved you'd traveled. Accomplishments validated your work. Friends showed you'd shared yourself. It wasn't just proof that you'd lived, it was a record of what that life was like. A person was the totality of what they'd done. Losing my past life cut me loose from everything mooring me to the world, to my life, to myself. I had no idea who the president was, what wars were going on around the world, who had won the World Series, actually the last 27 of them. I could not picture my college or the first school I taught at or any of the places I'd lived after the age of 13. I could not fathom all that I'd lost, the people I had loved or who had loved me, the music I listened to, the books I'd read, what I liked to eat for breakfast. I did not know what made me happy or sad. When I lost my memory, a part of me feared it might never return, but a larger part believed that when it did return, all the pieces would fall into place. My past would be settled, even resolved, and I'd be able to move on. What I learned is that the past is never settled. Its effects linger in the fabric of your being. I remembered something Mr. P had said when I half-jokingly announced I would run away from home to escape my mother's influence. You can't get away from her because wherever you go, you take her with you. She's inside you now, and yet you have to move on. Along with my memories, she'd also taken from me were the illusions built up over the years, created to protect myself, to convince myself that I was a good and decent person, that the worst things I'd done weren't really my fault. And when my memory returned, those illusions were gone forever. Thank you.